Okay, so before starting this review, I want to say this is pretty much the first big game title that I've reviewed so far. This is because what I do to choose a game is I count all of the ones that have been released so far in the week, and then I put them in a randomizer, and whatever number comes up I have to play. Now, this can be a problem if I'm trying to get my channel out there, because there is a very large oversaturation problem with Steam, because apparently Steam thought it'd be great not to greenlit any of the games. So that means there's about 400 games coming out per week. I know because I've counted them. And as a result, this has been the first game that I have played that has actually been relevant to the gaming industry at all. Anyway, with that out of the way, I want to start the review. Look, I'm not usually one to laugh at other people's misfortune, but I'm going to make an exception for this one game, because the whole situation Xaviant Games have put themselves in is nothing short of a disaster. What do I mean by that though? Well, there's the fact that Xaviant Games have made a game, an online game, that has 0 people playing it. Like, there is no one playing it right now. And it isn't an exaggeration when people say, oh, PUBG or League of Legends, they're dead. This game is literally dead. There is no one playing it right now. The times that I have spent looking for a lobby with someone in, there's been no one. I mean, just look at the Steam charts to see how many people are playing it. Yeah, it's 0. It's literally 0. I mean, here's PUBG to show you how Steam charts are actually supposed to look. Compare that to the cullings, and it's crazy how many people are playing it, and by how many I mean how few, because it's crazy. Like, this looks like someone has just died on a heart monitor in a hospital. That's how bad this looks. But the thing is, it can't be dead, because you need to be alive to have died first, and this game was literally dead upon launch. It also doesn't help that everyone under the sun has decided to review this game, and by everyone I mean everyone from Jim Sterling to IGN to me. There are also some funny reviews on Steam, but the funniest ones aren't the ones that are criticising the game, they're the ones that are defending it. With one person saying, anyone who hates this game because it isn't the exact same as the culling is an idiot. They never said they were gonna make the same game. Also, the game runs fine, so I don't know what type of computer the plebs on here giving negative reviews use, but grow up. Also, I'm not too sure this person realises that most people hate this game, not because it's not like the culling one, although there are some people out there who despise it for that. No, most people hate it because it cannot run, because there is no one playing it. Now, I haven't played the game at all, apart from being in the lobby, but apart from that fun experience, I haven't played the game. But from the footage that I have seen of the game, I can tell that they're trying to imitate PUBG in the sense that they're trying to get that feeling of fear when you can't see another player, but you know that they're in the surrounding area. Yeah, they're trying to imitate that feeling. But the thing is, they've actually imitated everything else from PUBG whilst they were at it. Now, one thing I can comment on is the shooting in this game. That's because in the lobby they put in a shooting range, so that means I know what the weapons are like, and they're fine. They're just standard. They look like they were ripped straight out of PUBG. They're fine. There's not much to say about them, apart from the fact there's melee weapons in it for some reason. I'm not too sure why you would choose a sledgehammer over a gun, any type of gun really, but for some reason they decided to put them in here. I don't know why. The only creative weapon that I have found in this game is the deployable shield, and I assume it works. I don't know, because I haven't played the game. Well, I have played the game, but the only part of the game that I've played is the lobby. Now, the first culling marketed itself off being the first Battle Royale game show, and they did the same with the Culling 2, except this isn't really a Battle Royale game show, because the only game show element is the announcer, as well as a woman who gives you tips, but I'm pretty confident that's what the loading screen's for. You can't justify being the first Battle Royale game show if all you have is two voice actors giving you tips and telling you how screwed you are. If you want to go for the whole game show aesthetic, how about you make it so while spectating you go from location to location through cameras around the map instead of just following one person. Now, the character customization is something that I have had an in-depth look at, and it is some of the worst that I've ever seen in a video game, and this isn't through lack of effort being put into it, it's through lack of options that you can actually unlock in the game. What I mean by this is the game basically has an Overwatch type loot box system where you can get both currency and items in the loot boxes. But the thing is, the only way to get these loot boxes is by leveling up. The only way you can level up is by playing the game. And by playing the game, I don't mean waiting in the lobby for another human being to actually play the game. I mean getting into the map and start shooting people is what I mean by playing the game. So basically what Xaviant Games have done is they've spent time and money making models that can never be used in the game. And because there's no microtransactions for the currency, you can't buy the items upright. You can only get them through the currency in the loot boxes or just by getting the items in the loot boxes in general. Those are the only two ways you can get them. But the thing is, the Culling 2, which is such an obvious cash grab, you'd think it would have microtransactions. I mean, no one would use them, but that's like one of the tick boxes for an obvious cash grab is to put microtransactions in them. I don't know, maybe they just couldn't be bothered coding it, like they couldn't be bothered coding any creativity into the game. On top of that, the items, they're not the greatest. I mean, just look at the items in Fortnite compared to the items here. In Fortnite, they actually look like stuff you want. In here, not so much. They just look bad and uncreative. I mean, even the hats. How do you mess up having hats in your game? Hats are so fun, and yet you just have the most standard things. Most of the t-shirts just are recolorings with no patterns on them whatsoever. Now, after a week of bad reviews and the player base dropping into single figures, they have decided to scrap the Culling 2 entirely and start giving everyone refunds. Now, the only reason why I know this is because Xaviant Games have put out a YouTube video where they try to salvage whatever faith might be left within their players. In the YouTube video they admit that they messed up, which is a given really, because I don't think they could fool anyone into believing that this isn't anything that's not a disaster. But the thing is, before I went into this YouTube video, I had a feeling that they couldn't pull this off, that they couldn't get anyone back for the next culling or whatever they planned to do next because they messed up that badly, and that there was no way to win back the players who had been playing the culling series for so long and were so disappointed by the sequel. But after watching the YouTube video, I have to say there might be a little bit of hope for this series yet. Now, the other big thing that they announced in the YouTube video is that they're going to re-release the original culling. Because if you don't know anything about the first culling game, let me tell you real quick, it's a bit of a disaster. Not as much as this one, but it's still a bit of a disaster. I mean, the first culling game started off alright, but then it just spiraled into madness, and by madness I mean none of the developers actually listened to anyone who was playing the game, and they just proceeded to pile on random stuff that no one actually asked for or wanted. And as a result, the game became a lot worse as time went on. So essentially what Xaviant Games are doing is they're remaking the first culling game but actually using the feedback that the fans are giving them this time instead of just blatantly ignoring them. They're also planning to make the game free to play so that they can bring in new players. This is a really smart idea because looking at the recent reviews on the culling game, everyone seems to be on board with the idea of making the first one free to play. Also, this is probably one of the first times I would advocate for a game to have microtransactions in it, because otherwise I'm not too sure how Xaviant Games are going to sustain themselves, unless this free to play thing is more of a beta than anything else and they're going to make it so that you can buy the full game later. So all in all, this seems really good. The only thing that I would make sure that happens is that the Culling 2 stays dead and buried, because this game was never going to do well. It just wasn't. There was no creativity behind it. You can salvage it for whatever assets you need, but other than that, I would leave it alone. So in the end, this game is a massive disaster. I've actually never seen a game do as bad in anything, really, as I have this. Never mind a game that I've actually played. But hopefully Xaviant Games can learn from this and actually do something good with the first culling game, instead of just making awful sequels that are just rip-offs of PUBG, and actually add things to the original culling game that people want instead of just content that no one wants. But in terms of the ranking, this game is the worst one so far, and that's saying something. I have played some awful games. Some games that are just Unity assets compiled together with a little bit of code in it. But the reason it's the lowest is because this is the first game I've had to refund, first of all. And secondly, when you can't get into an actual game and you're just waiting in the lobby, then at that point it's not really a game anymore. It's just you waiting around for someone to turn up and hopefully play the game with you.